scrap, only if I give him the order. And you feeling itchy, you got something to say, just know we hop this way. Nobody else is suited for this other than us. I know it's crazy, but we work with it and don't give up. Welcome to the show. If you don't know the name, we call it Hop This Way.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Hop This Way show. It's your boy Zeus, and with me, it's our usual tongue. I've got Mr. Money Matt, Mr. Chew America himself. Matt Chua is here. The warrior geek Max herself, the mistress of medievalness. I don't know. She is just, as we all know, Rebecca Nishi. How are you?
I'm fine. Glad to be here again with you guys.
And then, of course, we have the absolute pleasure of having the composers for Warrior, Reza, Safinia, and H. Scott Salinas. Welcome to the show,
gentlemen. Thank you for having us.
The sound gods of Warrior.
Now, first off, the first thing I have to ask to both of you, what did you think of our boys' intro there?
Oh my God, that was so hot. That was fire. My God.
Yes. Pretty rad. Well done.
I'll take it.
Not bad. There you go, Chua. You've got the seal of approval. Rez, let me start off with you. How did you get into the industry? Let's get into that before we got into Warrior here.
The industry, as far as like, you mean the film side of the industry?
Yeah. How did you get into composing?
It's kind of accidentally in a way, like, because I was in the music business before. I was a record producer for quite a long time. And then I kind of just, a friend of mine was making a short film, and he asked me to do the music for it, and I really enjoyed it. And I did it, and then I kind of was like, this would be a really fun thing to do. And around that time, actually about a year after that, I met Scott. And Scott was running a commercial music company. And I'd never done music in commercials before. And Scott was like telling me, hey, you should think about doing this stuff. And then I actually did some stuff with Scott for commercials. And then I just got into the idea of doing music and picture. And as I got into the idea of that, I just did more and more short films until eventually one of the directors who was making these short films ended up making a feature film. And I did the music for it, and it ended up going to Sundance, and it ended up getting distribution and getting bought by Lionsgate. And after that, I basically professionally went into film scoring. So it was kind of a series of events that led there.
So you and Scott have been working together kind of since the beginning. Scott's almost like your way into the biz. Is that safe to say?
In a manner of speaking, yeah. I mean, Scott was a mutual friend of ours.
He was gonna get there with or without me. I was just lucky to be along for the ride.
No, I mean, a mutual friend of ours introduced us about 12 years ago, and I was just completely blown away by Scott's music. You know, I mean, both of us were, you know, like at a different stage of our careers than we are now, and you know, I was just like listening to his music, and I was just completely blown away because I was like, dude, you should be like an Oscar-winning composer. Like your stuff is just so amazing. You know, and he was fond of some of the stuff I was doing too, and we kind of had different styles, and we just always thought, you know, our styles together could come together on various things. So over the years, you know, we've collaborated on various things. I mean, we have our own separate careers as well, but every now and then we always come together to do something, and Warrior was one of those things.
Now, what about you, Scott? What was your introduction into the business like?
I had a little bit more traditional route. I went to school for music and composition and a couple rounds of school. And then I went to work for my professor right out of school and was his apprentice And then the thing that sort of let me break out on my own was I won a contest, this silent movie contest, where they gave you a scene from a silent film and you scored it, and whoever won, they actually gave you an entire silent film from the 20s. This is Turner Classic Movies. And so they gave me this film and an orchestra. So I was very fortunate in my 20s to be already getting to record orchestra and work on feature films. And that sort of helped launch me and give me the courage to go off on my own. And yeah, it's been about 20 years since then.
But you won an award for that, didn't you?
Yeah,
Did
it
you?
was a contest. Yeah, the
Yeah,
award was here's a
amazing.
movie. That was the award. They gave me a movie, which that's all the award I wanted. It was a really nice way into the business.
So you're in your 20s when you get this, and you're heading up these huge orchestras. How intimidating is that for you at this point?
It's definitely a little bit of fake it till you make it. I was lucky that prior to that, in the job that I was in, the composer that I was working for, he was having the best couple of years of his career, and we were going around the world and recording his stuff, some of which, I helped write some and arrange, but, it was definitely his baby. But I kind of got to get the experience of, leading an orchestra without the pressure. And then for the contest, there's no direct, everybody's dead who worked on this movie. It's a film from the 20s. There was no oversight. The only pressure was to get the recording done in the time period allotted, which is complicated, and just not make a fool out of myself in front of this Hollywood orchestra. But I didn't have any sort of like, will they like it? There was no, like, Turner Classic Movie was going to take whatever I did. I mean, I guess if I just written 80 minutes of one note, they might have kicked it back, but they really were, didn't have any comments.
Right.
It was a wild intro to the business.
That is pretty epic and wild intro into the business. So take us along your journey from there, gentlemen. Like you tell us about some movies there. I see some big movies here. Most recently, I see The Banker on here. Scott, what is it like to get that phone call?
Well, that relationship started also in around 2001. I went to a film festival in New York City and met a guy, and now, again, 15, 20 years later, that's finally paying off. We became friends. He's an editor and a producer. So, that I'd known him for a long time and done a lot of indie films for them. And the director, George, actually directed a film that Reza and I did together called Birth of the Dragon. So, but, the truth is, every time those guys level up, you want to think they're going to take you with them, but nothing's guaranteed. And so, I had definitely, I mean, the director wanted me, but I definitely had to sort of prove myself to some of the producers and folks, it was Apple and all that. And, it was a challenge to get everyone on board, but in the end, I think they were happy.
Yeah. And Reza, obviously you were sold on him right away, as we see right here, some of your work as well.
Yeah, I was sold on who, sorry?
You were sold on working with Scott right away?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Scott's a genius, and like, I really felt like I said, no, for real, man. Like, the first time I heard his music, I was just really, really touched, like his like the way he writes and his orchestration is so rich with emotion, and it really like hit me, and actually at the time when I first met Scott, because I had come much more from a pop music background, that was a skill set that I was still developing. And so to see someone who was just so already amazing at it, it just like blew me away.
Right on. So
that's very sweet.
Well, obviously you guys have a good time working together because you guys have worked together for so long, but you've also, like you both said, you've kind of went both your separate ways. Now, once you get back to Warrior, how long had it been since you had worked together since the last time? And was it just like riding a bike? Forgive the phrase.
Well, we as Scott mentioned, we actually worked on Birth of the Dragon together,
Right.
Which it kind of has its own interesting story, but but that wasn't that long ago. That was in 2017, I think. So it was probably like a year or two before Warrior. And every now and then, some other things come up here and there. Like we just did a random track a few years ago that ended up becoming like used in a Django Unchained trailer. It's just like sometimes things come up. I'll give him a call, he'll give me a call, and we'll just collaborate on the odd thing here and there.
One thing about Warrior is it was competitive. This was not awarded to us. It was a very, very, we'll never know exactly how big, but pretty wide call. And we had to audition by writing music, and I'm pretty sure no one worked on it as hard as we did. I remember quitting a couple times at 3 a.m. and having temper tantrums, and Rez telling me to get my what together. We pushed it hard, and Rez really pushed me hard too, just to try to get everything perfect. And since then, I've actually had a few other auditions on other things, and I used to kind of be reluctant about auditioning because I thought, I'm trying to show off. I'm not writing the music of the show. And actually, if you do audition and you hit a home run, I mean, it's safe to say they really loved what we did. Then you're starting the conversation already having found the sound of the show. It's a very different starting point when you're meeting new people and starting a new creative process, and you've already figured it out pretty much. And that wasn't our words. That's what the showrunner was saying. You guys solved it. Obviously we've got a lot of work to do, but that's a great place to be. And kudos to Reza for really whipping me into shape on that one, because I was definitely dragging my feet.
The very first cue of episode 1 of season 1 was actually what we did for our demo before we had the job for the show. So
shit.
Yeah, so a lot of the themes of the show we did in that demo stage.
So you guys got basically they loved you right off the bat then, because it was if it was the stuff from the demo, you guys kind of had it nailed right away. What goes into that though? What goes into your thought process of, all right, so we're doing a show about this pilot that Bruce Lee wrote. How much of the script did you actually know? Or how much of the story did you know? Or did JT just kind of come up to you and say, this is the feel we're looking for?
Well, we didn't actually get the script. We just had a little description of what they were looking for, and the description was not completely specific. It mentioned a few things. It used the word pulp a lot, and we weren't quite sure what pulp actually meant, because that's open to interpretation. And we hadn't actually spoken to JT until we finished doing the music, and until we made it to the final round of the decision process. So really, kind of, we just went with our instincts, because we got the clip, we got the clip of that first scene where Assam comes off the boat and and has that horrible interaction with that racist guy, and that was what we had to see. And so there was a few visual things that were obvious to us from the bat. One is it's a very epic looking show, so it's cinematic. It's not small, it's big, right? The other is that the Sergio Leone aspect of it being like a Western was also apparent in the conversation that happened with that racist guy. You know, the part where he's like, "Oh, you don't speak English," and then he suddenly starts speaking English. You know, that was so classic, like a Western. You know.
Hey, Richard.
So we just went off that, to be honest. We were like, okay, well, it's an epic. It's going to be Western. They mentioned that they like hip hop. They mentioned pulpy, and you know, we kind of didn't really know what pulpy meant, but like we kind of decided that it meant something like the White Stripes for some reason. You know, like a Jack White kind of guitar vibe. You know,
Right.
Mixed with that Sergio Leone kind of vibe, you know. So we just put all these things together like that, you know. I don't know. What do you think, Scott?
But can you tell us a little bit of how did you get to there? Because you told me once that you have to hunted them down because you're such a Bruce Lee fan and you wanted to do this project. So how did you hear about it?
Oh, well, we had both heard about it through our agents because it was kind of like a prestige show. Because even though it was on Cinemax in the beginning, Cinemax, the production company, is HBO, and Justin Lin was, you know, a producer. So it was like it was high up on the radar of agents, you know. So, you know, we had both heard about it, and also every other composer in town, you know, people who are much more, you know, successful than us had heard about it and were trying to get on the show. But separate to that, when I saw the description of what the show was, because I'm such a Bruce Lee fan, I just went nuts for it, you know, and I think I've converted Scott into a Bruce Lee fan over the years, you know.
For sure.
But, you know, this was really something that I really specifically wanted to do, and Scott wanted to do with me because we had collaborated on Birth of the Dragon. And so, you know, I felt, you know, I really felt in my heart that we would do a better job than, you know, other composers, not out of arrogance, but just because more out of reverence than out of arrogance, you know, because I've literally spent my whole life, you know, worshipping Bruce Lee, you know, like his philosophy of life is the philosophy of life that I follow, you know. To me, he's much more than a martial artist. He's a teacher, you know. He's like a very wise, probably the wisest person in Western culture that's ever been, you know, and he came from the East, but he is part of Western culture, and he brought a lot of amazing ideas from Taoism into mainstream consciousness in the West, you know. And so for those reasons, I've always been such a hardcore follower, and I felt in my gut that, you know, we're the right people for this job, you know. So I just kept checking in, kept writing emails. I just didn't give up, you know, for a long time, for like 6 months, and then eventually, you know, they were like, okay, you want it so bad, here you go, do a demo.
Hey.
You know.
So fascinating that everyone has some good story about how they get to the show. You know, the cast, I think, is really Bruce Lee spirit, you know, rounding among us, and everyone came together in this auspicious gathering. It's how I feel about Warrior. You know, everyone that worked on it is so connected. Everyone has a good relationship, and it has to do to Bruce Lee spirit.
For sure.
Most definitely. Most
100%.
definitely.
I got a question. So I was listening to both of your catalogs, and I don't know if this is on purpose or if you guys ever caught on to it before, but you both have a very distinguished sound in how you guys approach your music, and number one, these tell fucking incredible stories. You know, just the sound and the way that the compositions are. It's both of them are fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm curious as to, you know, how do you both approach, you know, making, like, starting from scratch? Like, do you guys have the scene like in front of you, like when you guys approach everything? Do you kind of just maybe go off of imagination and then it just magically fits and then it's just all about tinkering? And then when you guys have done Warrior, where you've collabed a few times, like, how is that process, like that give and go, like, oh, let's fucking throw this in here, or, you know what, let me pull back here, you do you, like, how? I know that's so many questions all in all, but yeah.
Well, I can
How
start
does
off. I mean, when we're working on Warrior, especially at the beginning part of the seasons, when we're coming up with a lot of material, we get together in the studio and it's really fast. Like not that each cue gets created quickly, but the pace of creation is. I mean, it really is kind of frenetic. Like, oh, what do you think? Okay, yeah, lay that down, and like one person's playing, the other one's engineering, and then we swap, and what do you think about this? And I think we're both really good at sort of staying out of each other's way when there's an idea that's hot off the presses. Just help the other person
Ooh.
get it out. And then we're also both really comfortable with like, okay, I had this idea, it's out. How can we develop it? We're very collaborative, and it doesn't really matter to either of us where the idea comes from. And I've also noticed, like, any sort of disputes or things where we're not on the same page, they'll be around story. They won't be about like, hey, I don't think this minor chord is good or bad, or I don't like this tune. We have, even though we have different sets of skills, we have pretty similar tastes. Like, we just tend to like a lot of the same things. Like when someone does, like, we pretty much like each other's music, even when it's being made. So the things that once we start getting into, well, how do we develop this music? And it's about, well, what's happening here in the story? Should we get pulpy here and sort of like superhero, like, oh, Hassan's kicking butt, or is this more like intense scene? Is he in danger? We're going to be having conversations about story and theme, and that. I mean, not that anything ever gets heated creatively. Like, we just have a really good rapport, and I mean that's why we like doing it. And luckily this isn't our first time collaborating, so we know we're comfortable that we're gonna show up. One of the things that can be hard in collaboration is if, like, not everyone's working as hard, or or people have different sense of work ethic, but like we're on the same page about all that stuff. And to me, when I was younger, I was in a lot of bands, but like Rez went further in that world and record producing and making records. To me, it's when we work together, it's closer to the sensibility of making records than it is of like traditional film composers and sitting there and scoring. I think it's just like, you might spend 2 weeks working on one song for a record, and we can't always do that. We have to move a little bit faster, so we've found ways of working that speed up the process. And also we're pretty good at getting it on the first take, especially Rez. He's a great player. So, but I think when you picture like a band in the studio, like, it's kind of more like that, like sitting there and like, in R17, I think we should use the Mixolydian mode. It's more bandy, and that's what the music sounds like, right? I mean, we're using a methodology to make it.
You could tell that was a real thing that was actually said just by residents' reactions. Oh, damn! Yeah, I remember you saying that.
What do you think, Reza?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. Season 2 was quite different to season 1, in that, in season 1 we were very precious about everything. Like, everything Scott says is correct. Like, we work very fluidly with each other, but we really like spent a lot of time refining everything in season 1. With season 2, we took a different approach to it, which was that we spent more time on the ideas and more time on developing new themes and less time on being precious about perfecting everything. So, and we laid down a lot of things like that frenetic thing Scott was talking about was really like crazy in season 2, because we would literally just get together and like in a 4-hour session, we just might record like 10 tracks, you know, like crazy quick. And the ideas are just flowing. We just lay them down. And we kind of went with that attitude for season 2, which was super fun. We did that for 2 reasons. One is because we just had a lot of music to write. Like this show has a lot of music, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like double the workload of most shows, you know. And the other thing is that we didn't want to just repeat all this music that we had from season 1. We wanted to come out with new ideas and do like push the envelope, you know. And so yeah, we just took that approach to it. But what I was really like happy about is and Scott really kind of reassured me about this. Is that like we had set the bar so high on season 1 in terms of our like workflow and like the way that we were doing stuff, that on season 2 I was a little bit concerned that kind of the crazy whirlwind nature of the way we were working might have been compromising on the quality, but actually it actually gave it a new sound, which it was a different quality, but it was like, you know, it was still quality. Like we didn't lose the quality, but it just has rawness to it. Like season 2 is rawer than season 1. And I actually really enjoy that about it. I don't know if you guys perceived it the same way.
I did. And it took me watching the series 2 times, I think. It was on my second time going through it, where I noticed that you guys play a variation of the main theme in every episode. Like, and like if you're out west, you give it kind of like that Western kind of twang to it. When you're in Mexico, same deal. Was that a concerted effort? Was that something you guys had plotted out ahead of time? Or is that just one of those happy accidents that
we had to
a
fight
few episodes
hard.
and you're like, let's keep doing it?
We have to fight hard to sneak those in, because Jonathan, the showrunner, you know, he doesn't really want like the Game of Thrones aesthetic where like the theme is just in like Game of Thrones, there are themes, but like that no, like that's in almost every single scene. It's very cool and creative. Like not to diss, it's not like the music is boring or repetitive, but he really milks that thing. And Jonathan really is averse to that. Like he likes the main titles to be sort of iconic and their own thing, and you know, so from time to time we'll either sneak it in or like, can we use it here? And he'll be like, okay, I like it here this one time. So we're actually incredibly deliberate when it happens, and sometimes have to make a case for it creatively or with story.
That's hilarious. I got a quick question also. Now I know for me, when I'm writing music and I hit writer's block, you know, it's the absolute worst, and it takes forever to finally get out of it. Is there composer block, and how do you overcome that? And is it almost like forced to overcome because when you work on these type of shows and there's certain deadlines, like does it put more pressure to it, or maybe better to kind of force you out of that like slump?
I have a thought on that. To me, the secret to writer's block or composer's block is, I think it stems from the fear of making something that sucks.
Oh, damn, you're so right.
It's not that you can't think of anything, right? It's not like your head is just like empty and you're like, oh my gosh, I've lost all ability to think of anything. You just don't like what you're hearing in your head, or you don't like what you're judging what you're doing and you're not happy with it. That's what writer's block is. And you won't allow yourself to continue down the path because the judging part of your brain says it's not good enough. You have to learn how to turn that off. If you're going to write a lot of music on a regular basis, you have to just learn how to turn that judging part of your brain off long enough to get the idea out, And then you got to be able to turn it back on. And it's not necessarily about how much you like it or don't like it. It's, is this, is this feel like Warrior? Is this telling a story? You know, like those are the things that I like to base it on. If I was only ever allowed to write something that I thought was the greatest thing ever, yeah, I probably would never have written anything, because that judgy part of me will never be satisfied. That's the insecurity that all of us have, imposter syndrome. But when you actually have a job, like you said, that's in front of you to do, you just have to be comfortable that you may make some things that don't work. And I almost think you have to clear them out of your system. Like, you know, like when a pipe hasn't been turned on in a year and you turn it on and like all this brown stuff comes out and then it's clear water. Like sometimes that stuff that first comes out is actually useful, but most of the time it's like, just get it out of my system. You know, you have to write through the block, and not everything has to be great or even correct or right.
That is a great analogy. Like,
Pe-
go ahead, Rebecca.
People love the songs in the end of episodes. You know, people was tracking down the season 2 songs and couldn't find. Then we finally got the news that was released. Frank was he's not here today to say that. So I'm telling for him. And so apparently you have other partners for these songs of the end of episodes. So who are they, and how did it work for you? You know, we changed from reggae music to jazz, classical, now soundtracks. So how do you mix this all?
Well,
Kind of.
the songs that are at the end of the show are often either, well, we have a music supervisor on the show, Evian Clean, amazing guy who you know, he's involved in sort of supporting us in what we do and also advising us. You know, every week we sit down with Jonathan and we go through the show, and everyone comes up with their ideas of what kind of musical direction we should be going in specifically scene by scene. But also what he does is he puts together the music that's not part of our composition. And that falls into 2 categories. One category is a category of like, he just licenses songs that are already pre-existing. And then there's another category, which has been really fun for us, where it's a collaboration between us and another artist called Chops. And basically what happens is we give our stems from some of the cues that we've done, and then Chops will work on it, or sometimes other artists will work on it that Evian has sent it to, and they all like do a remix. So you'll hear the flavor of Scott and our music in there, but really it's someone else's work who basically used our work as a sample, you know.
Nice. Now I know one of the songs everyone's all ass about is the remake of Little Green Bag. How do you guys get stuff like that, where obviously it's an iconic song, but now we're getting the Chinese version of that? Does that help you get around some legalities there as well for having it translated?
Well, we just did what we were told.
So we're just throwing JT right under the bus right now.
It wasn't us. It wasn't us.
I actually, that was so long ago, I actually don't remember what we did. I remember something about it, but we did remake it, right?
Yeah, and I think that originally we had in the cut, there was the original version. And maybe Evian found it. I don't know exactly how it happened, but it was definitely a breakthrough to do it the other way, because everyone felt that maybe it was just a little too much of a callback to Tarantino or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so it was actually, the show could afford it. You know, it wasn't like a way to make it cheap or anything. There were factions that thought that the song was just a little bit too random for the style of the show. So if I'm remembering correctly, that was a way to make it fit the show more.
Right.
And I think it's a successful way to handle that, because that's the other thing. I'm pretty sure we stuck to this, but there are no songs in the body of the episodes. They're only at the end. Like, even though you'll notice in the show, like, the guys are wearing modern suits and there are anachronisms, and the music obviously doesn't sound like the music. Yeah, exactly. Doesn't sound like the music from the 1800s, right? So we're using modern things, but there was if not all the time, at least 99% of the time, the idea was, let's save the sort of songs for the end, because we don't want this to start turning into, maybe like a Peaky Blinders, even though that's a great reference. But, we wanted to
Right.
kind of have our own identity.
That's fair. So how now that we know season 3 is underway, filming hasn't started yet. Like we're all super stoked about this. When do you two start work? When do you and say that this had been a normal year and the season 2 ends? When do you start working on soundtrack for season 3? Is it after scripts come in, or are you already starting to toy with ideas ahead of time? Because you have an idea, you're going to have that episode 5 or episode 6 where they're in Mexico, or they're in, some
Bottle
New
episodes.
Mexico. Yeah. So how does that go for you guys? When do you usually start working on the next season?
I mean, it won't be till they've actually shot it and they're in the edit.
Oh,
So
okay.
for us, for season 3, it'll be at least a year away at this point, I think, right, Scott?
Yeah, that's right. I think between season 1 and season 2, there was a delay from when the show was wrapped in terms of post-production and when they aired it.
Mhm.
So those were pretty tight together. Like, there wasn't a huge space between the 2 seasons. And then they actually didn't air it for quite some time. They sat on it. But I think in this case, yeah, we're a ways out. But I don't know. My brain is already percolating, and yeah, you can guarantee there'll be one of those. I forget what they're called. What are those episodes called? There's a
The
term
bottle
for it.
episodes.
Bottle episode.
Bottle
Yeah.
episode.
Episodes, yeah.
You better believe there'll be a bottle episode, and that's always like really, really fun. Like we always have a good time on those, and they've tended to be kind of Western-y in flavor.
Right.
But who knows?
And they seem to be fan favorites across the board as well. And I mean, anyone who watches the show, almost every single episode is a fan favorite episode.
I was gonna say every episode is fucking great.
Season 2 was great. How good was season 2, man?
No, season 2 was insane, and that
It was
little
awesome.
Endgame Avengers scene in episode 9 was just ungodly crazy. Like
Crazy.
everything was perfect, from the cinematography to the fucking score and the music. Everything just enhanced that whole 10-15 minute. Oh, Jesus Christ, just running it in my head now. I'm just like,
Right.
oh, it's
That
so
reminds
beautiful.
That reminds me of the question that you asked, which we answered partially, but we didn't fully answer, which is, I think part of the question is, how much do you work to picture versus away? How do you develop your ideas? And as a great example, if you're going to just sit down, I swear there was a 13 or 16 minute stretch of music, which is a very long time for just nonstop music. Cues are usually going to be 2 to 3 minutes. So to give you a sense, like 16, 20 minutes is just like, if we had sat down and tried to like approach that frame by frame, we'd still be working on it right now. So, like, that's not the way to go on it stuff. The way to go is to watch the stretch a couple of times, have some conversations about what are some of the big beats or moods or things we know we need to cover within that. Maybe it's 5 or 6 things that we know we have to cover, and then work on those ideas really away from picture. I mean, sometimes we'll have it just playing on the background in a loop or something in a
Yeah.
quick time just to feel if like what we're doing. But once, at this point in the show, we know what style of music works for the, like we already have a good sense of that. So you sort of build these bigger building blocks and you make more stuff than you need. And then you go in and go, okay, what have we got here? How is this going to work? And then you start refining. It's very hard to just go straight linearly through something like that without having that 30,000-foot view. And not only is it very hard, but you'll get attached to things that aren't necessarily working because you've spent so much time constructing this perfect 30 seconds and now you have 16 minutes left.
Oh, I know that feeling.
And you're dead. You're dead in the water.
But in terms of inspiration, do you think of the characters like the way, the personality, the way the person moves, the body? Does it come like an inspiration when you're composing?
100%. 100%. Like there's a few things actually from season 2 which really impacted me. And like one of them was that the whole massacre thing, and just the whole Jacob, his story.
Oh.
It just like really moved me and made me angry and upset, and it took me a little bit out of the fun zone of Warrior, and it just made me look at things in a more serious context. So, that just gave, like what Scott was saying, is like you got to sometimes take a bird's eye look at the whole thing. And for me, the bird's eye look was telling me that, yeah, there's action and there's stuff going on, but really underlying the action is tragedy, and that's and so that was inspiring me for that stuff. And then another thing, completely opposite though, was the character of Hong. He was such a smart wit, and he was so like, I don't know, he's just funny. Like the interplay between young June and Assam and Hong was like, it was fun, and that inspired me in a different way and took me on a different direction, So those are definitely two examples where the character is messaging to take the music into a different sphere. Wouldn't you agree, Scott?
Definitely. And just to build on what you're saying, for that sort of darker or more tragic part of the score, Reza just went and like on his own just wrote this crazy, beautiful piano piece sketch. I don't even know. I can't even remember how much of the piano is even in there anymore. I'm sure some of it, but it was, it was like it had everything it needed. It sort of gave us the DNA of how to approach, again, that longer form, the tragedy of it, and the sort of dramatic nature. And then for something else that's going to be lighter or a different thing, we might just like make a crazy metal song, or, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
the original germ of the idea in one case was a piano sketch, but in another case might be like a fully developed, like, here, let's just quickly make a weird heavy metal song, or and I feel like that's also
sorry to interrupt, and the reverse of that, because Leary had a heavy metal kind of vibe to him, like
that's right,
in the first season, but in this season his heavy metal vibe, the same tune, it's probably hard to pick it up because it's so radically different in the way it's presented. But the same thing that's been playing in the heavy metal vibe is now being played on a romantic piano.
Which is so strange with Dean. Well, maybe it's strange with Leary and not so strange with Dean.
Right.
Yeah.
As we see our boy there.
I'm not gonna lie. Hong's theme is, I play that shit every time before I walk into the gym. Every time it's like dan. I'm like, yo, fuck yeah, I'm about to fucking go in.
Listen, I will keep saying this until it happens. We need to have an episode where it's a flashback episode, and it's all about the Violin Man, and the Violin Man is actually played by Hong in this flashback. Because I
Yes.
need to see that actual story played out. Just give it to me. And give me Bolo's
That's
twin
awesome.
back. And this is the
Oh.
way to bring Richie Ting back. We bring Richie back as his twin with the actual Bolo Young as their father, looking for revenge.
Wow, that would be so cool.
That was me dropping the tongue.
You got to start another petition to HBO.
Yes.
Is Zack Snyder done for a while? Are we allowed to start petitioning HBO for other stuff again?
That's funny.
Oh man, it's funny you brought that up because that was one of the themes that we really had fun doing the Bolo theme in season 1. It's so intense. Do you remember?
Yeah, that was
Bolo is
awesome.
intense, though.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the petition or whatever. Right around when it was renewed, it was I was at a kid's birthday party, everyone vaccinated and masked, and my wife is Korean, so it was all Koreans and me. And I can't tell you how many people walked up to me and told me they had signed the petition. And I was like, yes, it's so cool to be part of something. Like we all signed
how
the
nice.
petition. It was like 60. I was like with like 60 people that had all signed the petition. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool.
Where were you guys when you found out like it was renewed for season 3?
Someone
I was in my studio mixing a track.
No doubt.
We found out when you found out. Let's put it that way. Which is normal.
Like, oh,
to be
shit.
expected.
Did you guys call each other like, yo, did you see that?
Yep.
Actually, Scott told me. You told me you found out at the party, and then you texted me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, we got work again.
Yes, we're back. Dust off the instruments.
Now, let me ask you both of you this, because it seems, especially Reza, when you were talking about this and how much the story of Warrior has affected you, has any other show or movie affected you like this? Is this a normal thing for composers? And I do put this to both of you. Is this something that's normal with each project you work on, that you get this invested? Or is this a different level? Because when we talk to other people on this show, it seems to be something different here with cast and crew.
Yeah.
I get. Well, it depends. Are you asking in terms of just the projects I work on, or generally when I watch films?
On projects you work on.
Yeah, I mean, there have been. This one I definitely get into 100%, especially this season, because it just really, the themes to it really spoke to me. But it depends. Like, it just really depends on the project. Some projects I enjoy, but I don't necessarily, stay up at night thinking about. And then some projects really do weigh on me very heavily, and I think about them a lot, so it just depends.
Sure. Scott?
I mean, this one was unique, I think, for both of us because of the collaboration. I mean, we would sort of set up, we both had other jobs at the same time, and you on our own. So we would sort of set up these dates, like, all right, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, with lockout. Like, I don't care what you got going on. Let's get together and let's make some music. So there was some anticipation built up, and also like very concentrated work sessions that may not have been that. Like, maybe if I'm working on my own, I would have put 4 hours in and then gone to something, so again, that's where for me the album type of sort of model kind of kicks in on this show, and I don't normally work that way on other shows. I'm more like steady as she goes, but like this is like a love affair, like this is like a romantic weekend here. It's like it's that all bets are up, and we got to get this stuff done, and we get caught up in a whirlwind. And the neat thing about making music that way is you might spend 4 hours. I'm exaggerating a little bit. Let's say 2 hours getting the perfect drum sound, and then 15 minutes finishing the rest of the track. Like it's not not all aspects of the creative process have the same amount of time allotted. And when you're collaborating, if you're really in sync with someone, you guys can go through those ebb and flows of like, whoa, time just, I don't know what happened in the last 4 hours. And whoa, we were really efficient in these 4 hours. And you can ebb and flow that, sort of ride that wave of creativity. It's a really fun thing to do with someone else, because when you're alone in the studio, you're like, sometimes you're just like, what just happened? Did anything happen? Did I hallucinate that? It's like you have no basis in reality. But when you go through it with someone else, it's like, okay, this really happened. We really did see those UFOs or whatever it is.
Well, hey, the Pentagon's already confirmed, the third one in a year. I'm sorry, if we're just talking UFOs, I didn't mean to go off there.
Something like that. I don't know.
I couldn't
Third
resist.
one, not something like that. Third one in a calendar year. I don't wear a tinfoil hat. Promise. Now we're getting close to the end of the show here. So, gentlemen, normally when we have people on here, I like to pose a genie question to our guests. Because there's two of you, I'm going to split it here. Same wish to both of you here. It's a conditional wish. I'm going to ask you both. If I could snap my fingers and you could be the lead composer in any movie franchise right now, who's it going to be? And it doesn't have to be right now. It could be of any time. You could take over for Hans Zimmer. You could do John Williams and redo Star Wars if you wanted. Or you could head up the Marvel franchise. What are you guys looking at?
For me, it's easy.
I'm going to let you go first, Rez.
Godfather.
Oh, that's a tough one, though. That's such a good soundtrack.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I like that one. Now, are you coming at it the same kind of style?
Like, would I do it the same as Godfather, you saying? Like the
same like the same kind of genre of music overall, or kind of like that overblown orchestra, or?
I really like very specifically what happens in Godfather 2, where the music goes a little bit more in a modern era. Like Godfather 1 is also beautiful, but it's much more traditional, Italian orientated. But in season 2, they take it into this amazing territory, almost like a Lalo Schifrin kind of vibe in places, and it's very, very deep and dramatic. Like I've actually heard like really cool techno songs that have sampled one of the main pieces from Godfather 2. Wow. Yeah, it's really cool. So I would take that thing and run with it.
I like that. I like it.
Yeah.
Scott, you got one?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Godfather, I don't know if I could, beat these scores. But the stuff that really gets me are like, I don't know if it's exactly a series, but like that film Arrival.
Right.
I really like the sci-fi with a monster, there is a monster twist or alien, like War of the Worlds. Again, that's one of the greatest scores ever.
Okay.
But like or those the classic ones. What are the classic ones with Ridley Scott?
Alien?
Alien. Like
Blade Runner.
Like that. It's the sci-fi with an unknown sort of monster component. Like there's also just sci-fi that's like not about monsters, which is also really cool. But like I feel like that genre is a cross between sci-fi and horror in a way. And those two things are really the most fun music to write for me, you know, because you can really be outlandish with some of your sounds and some of your harmonies. And I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor in my studio that never saw the light of day that belongs in in that genre of a movie. So
What artist does not have a lot of creation on their floor that they're just like, nah? Now, which other people is probably thinking that is the masterpiece right there. Now, I know our boy Chua's got some rapid fire questions for you, and then we want to talk about your albums, and then we'll get out of here.
Yes. So here comes some Tong trivia, so we can welcome you into our Tong here. So I'm just going to spit off a bunch of rapid fire questions, and they are posed to both of you. So whoever wants to answer first and then answer second. Here we go. Question number 1. Your most prized possession you own?
This is a wristband. It used to be the collar of my cat who died in January.
Oh.
And now I wear it as a wristband.
Ooh.
That's awesome.
Okay, I like that.
That's beautiful. Scott, you're going to have a hard time.
yeah, I guess I'm trying to think of something that would be very hard to part with. I really can't think of anything. Like, what's really strange that came to mind is my 15-month-old daughter, which I clearly don't own her. It's very strange. That's what popped into my head. Like, she's probably her and my wife are probably the only two things I couldn't live without. Everything else, I just don't really like stuff. You know, I have a lot of it, but I don't like. I mean, Reza's makes sense because it's not really it's not a thing. Like, I know it's a cop out. I'm sorry, it's really true.
Oh, good.
All right. Question number 2. What is your biggest pet peeve?
I could go. For me, it's incompetence when it's mixed with arrogance.
Ooh.
That's a special cocktail that I really, that one gets me. Like, I can handle both of them separately, but when they're together, that gets me going.
It's hard.
I love this.
That's it. That's a deadly combination for Scott. What about you, Reza?
My pet peeve. That's a really good one, honestly. But my pet peeve. I don't know. I live in LA, and one of my pet peeves is just the way that like people in LA are quite often just, when you go to a party, the first question is, "What do you do?" Or like stuff like that. You know what I mean? Although, at this point, you'd be lucky to go to a party and have someone ask you that question.
Yeah. What's a party? I don't even know what parties are anymore.
And,
question number 3. Oh, go ahead.
Big shout out to Steph as well, our fellow Hackett woman.
Hi, Steffi.
Hi, Steph. Just got back to Boston from spending time in Hawaii. We all feel bad for her.
I do not. No, I'm just kidding.
No, we do not. Question number 3, Matt.
Question number 3 is app on your phone you're always on.
Ooh.
Coinbase.
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 Yes.
Okay.
It's addictive. Oh my God.
What is Coinbase? Is this the new cryptocurrency thing?
It's a crypto app. Yeah.
It's how you buy and sell.
I'm so out of it. I am so just stupid when it comes to cryptocurrency.
Same.
But I
used to be. This is the thing. I was so against it and just not interested in it. And then I was just like, I feel like there's this whole train and I'm missing it,
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I better. And then actually, what you were talking about, every artist has stuff on the cutting room floor. Like that stuff is what's being turned into NFTs and being monetized. You know what I'm saying? So, and I have a lot of that stuff. And I was like, I should start thinking about this stuff. So, but before I can start thinking about this stuff, I got to learn about how crypto works, So then, one thing led to another.
Now you're
Now it's
addicted.
got me.
He fell for the black hole.
Scott, are you on the crypto? Are you on the crypto bandwagon as well?
I will be honest, I did install Coinbase on my phone the last 2 weeks. And the other thing was it took me 2 weeks for them to like verify me. I can't tell you how many steps I jumped. Like I had to hold up a poster with the time and like something written on it, and like it's really, really hard to actually just be able to buy cryptocurrency because I think they're so scared that people are not who they say they are. So I found the process of it so frustrating that I'm about to delete the app, but I'm only hurting myself. Like they don't care. But I spend an inordinate amount of time looking at golf swings.
What?
Golf swings.
Oh,
Okay.
That's my martial art right now, which is golf. Somewhere between a white belt and an off-white belt. But I'm working hard at it, and so I'm in that stage where you're obsessed with it, and lots of lower back pain and many swings I'm looking at.
I'm changing your wish answer. I'm sorry. I am making an executive decision. Now you are now composing Happy Gilmore 2.
I'll take it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, any golf movie.
Shout out to my very first ever interview, Christopher McDonald, Shooter McGavin.
Heck
Great
yeah.
guy. Anytime you get a chance to give a shout out to that guy, you have to. I'm just saying. One of the good ones. No, that's a great. You got another one there for him, Matt?
I got 2 more, and then we can close this out. Question number 4: who would narrate your life?
Good one.
I got it.
All right, Rez.
He's not living, but if you could somehow resurrect Gil Scott-Heron.
Okay.
I don't know who that is. I'm embarrassed to say.
The revolution will not be televised.
Oh, that's pretty rad.
Ooh, your shit would sound so epic.
I'm trying to help people out for a real quick second there who don't know who Rez was talking about. I'm seeing if I can be quick enough. I don't know if I'm quick enough, though. But for those of you who don't know, now you know.
The revolution will not be televised.
Just for the record. For the record.
That's awesome.
Steph is loving it. What about you, Scott?
Gosh, who would it be? For some reason, Joaquin Phoenix keeps coming to mind, and he's probably a pretty lousy narrator. It's just that from time to time in my life, people have thought that I was him. In dimly lit rooms, and so I just think it would be so funny if he had to narrate my life. I think that would just be the ultimate hilarity.
Awesome. I like that. Shout out to my absolute favorite Joaquin Phoenix movie, Parenthood.
Oh, yeah. He's incredible, man.
Great movie. Keanu Reeves at some of his best acting.
Yes.
Oh,
Just saying.
Yeah,
Just saying. If you've never seen it, go out and see that movie.
It's
Absolutely fantastic. You got one more there for us, Chua.
and finally, to close out the Tong trivia, what should everyone experience in their lifetime?
Ooh, I like this one. Oh, you're smiling, Scotty. You're going first.
Can you say it?
You can say it. This is a rated R show.
Maybe should isn't the right word. I don't want to pass judgment on people who choose not to. But I would say having a kid, both in the process that leads to a kid and then the actual having of a kid. I would recommend both of those things, preferably in that order. I just have my daughter's 15 months old, and everyone always says the same thing when they have a kid. But I was definitely a skeptic for a long time, and I feel so lucky to have had that experience.
As a parent, let me just say, Scott, I completely agree with you. We all feel that way until they hit about 12. And then till they're about 19, they're like, "Oh my God, what the fuck was I thinking?"
Nightmare.
I know I was an asshole during those years. My
And
parents.
that's just it. I
Me
always
too.
say our children are our karma for what we did to our parents.
Oh shit.
Probably.
Yeah, Chino, keep it wrapped, buddy. Keep it wrapped. And like that, Reza, what do you got?
I mean, I think he said it beautifully.
Yeah.
I think there's just everything in life is just, amazing. That phrase, just like to stop and smell the roses, So I don't think it needs to be one particular thing, but it can be literally eating a watermelon. It could, if you do it the right way, it could be like the most powerful experience,
I like that. I like that a lot. Now, gentlemen, this has been absolutely great of both of you to come on here and spend well over an hour of your time here with us. Before we leave, can you tell us a little bit what you got on the go, Reza? I know you got a new album out.
Well, album's coming out in July. I have a single out right now called Yantra, and an album's coming out called Yang in July. And I put out an album already called Yin in March. And Yin is a classical album, and Yang is an electronic album, and they're kind of like related. They got similar themes, but they just interpret it differently.
The yin and the yang. I love it.
Okay.
That's awesome. And how can everybody find it?
It'll be out everywhere. It's on Spotify. I'm on Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram or Spotify or both, then you'll get notifications. And I'm quite active on Instagram with my releases. And Spotify is great if people follow me on Spotify, because whenever you release something new, it actually notifies your followers automatically. So that's pretty good. And I'm also on Bandcamp. I mean, basically anywhere where you can stream or buy music, it's going to be there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Scott, what about you? What do you got coming up, my friend?
I had a show that just came out called Sasquatch.
Canadian show. No.
Yeah, on Hulu. It's pretty cool. It's kind of Bigfoot lore, murder mystery, all wrapped into one. And I'm pretty proud of it. We went pretty out there in music, and we also just released an album for that one. But Sasquatch on Hulu, check it out. It's not what you think.
It's not what we think at all.
No, it's very cool.
So I'm not gonna get to see the Yeti in this one. Is what I'm hearing from you at this point.
We'll see.
Oh, that's awesome, folks. So we'll check it out. Sasquatch on Hulu. Not sure if that was the right one or not, but
that's actually me in a Sasquatch suit. That's part of the
Can
job.
we talk about the lack of pictures of Sasquatch since the invent of cell phones? Just saying.
I know.
Anyways.
There's a lot more UFOs than Sasquatches sightings.
Right? Anyways, we'll get into that in our conspiracy show next week.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to part with before we go, gentlemen?
I want to say that all the UFOs, the ones that seem real, seem to me to always be by a body of water. I think they live in the ocean or even deeper, and they always come to the ocean. You heard it here first, and also a little movie called The Abyss.
The Abyss. Nice shout out. All right, that was Ed?
Yeah,
Ed Harris.
I always have to remind myself that I didn't come up with this theory, that I actually saw it when I was a kid in a movie.
That's all right. I credit myself for the Einstein-Rosen bridge, and it was always Event Horizon. So
Nice.
It was either that or Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm not sure which one, but
He's the man.
And Reza, any parting words, my friend?
Well, actually, I was just going to chime in on what you said about, just saying, like, there's no, since cell phones have come, there's less pictures of Sasquatch. There's one thing that I really love if you ever get these memes on Facebook that show you, like, conspiracy theories or whatever. My favorite is the one that shows, like, famous people from like the 19th century, like Jay-Z in 19th century.
Right.
Oh, Matt, have you seen that one?
Yes.
It's so amazing. Like,
It's
I don't know
got
if
Nick
they,
Cage, Keanu Reeves.
I know, like all these people have existed before. Like, it's just brilliant.
Keanu Reeves is a time traveler. There's a lot of
I mean, it's literally what he does in his movies.
It's either he's a time traveler or he's the real life Wolverine, and he's just been alive as the same age forever.
That's awesome.
Like, he's literally time traveling in this life. Like, he's like 50 something and he still looks like he's like 20.
Right. Benjamin Button.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got the wrong guy.
The real life. Him and Matt Chua, the only two that we've ever met in our life.
And he has like kind of monk wisdom. He's mysterious in a way.
Totally.
I'm going to say that's the mix of the Hawaiian and Canadian in him.
Oh yeah, could be.
He's very apologetic and also very just down to earth and one with the world. So,
Cool.
I mean, it's a great mix. Gentlemen, this was an absolute pleasure to have both of you come on here with us. Exactly.
All right,
You
good
deserve this
times.
and more. Big shout out for season 3 of Warrior coming our way. Folks, you heard them yourselves. You can find Reza's new album going to be coming out on all the platforms soon. Check out Sasquatch on Hulu as well, Scott's new show. And, of course, if you're watching this show, you're going to be watching season 3 of Warrior. So we will all see you then. For Matt Chua, for Rebecca Nishi, for Scott, for Reza, I'm your boy Zeus. This has been another edition of the Hop This Way Show. Peace out.
Awesome.